Uh, it was one of the most formative times in my life, learning and finally being able to put words to some of the feelings and theories that I had in the past, but am now old enough and like independent enough to put words to them and be like, "Oh no, I was right. These folks actually suck."
Mm-hmm.
And I hate this. Like do you remember at any point having a conversation about if you're trying to find your purpose in life, think about what makes you angry, and that's where you can find out what you're passionate about.
Yeah, they had a word for that, like divine anger or something like that. Like
Yes,
the anger that
righteous
comes
anger. Yeah.
righteous anger. That's what
Yep.
it is.
Yeah, find the thing that you're like righteously angry about, and that will be your calling in life. And being at Bible college is where I found the thing that makes me the most angry. Um, and to put it really simply, I don't like it when people use some sort of like just religious egotism to be like, I'm right and you're wrong, and I know God because I have a degree and you suck and are going to hell because of it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would say the thing that drove most of us out of the life group in the end was that attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the thing that got me out of going to Bible college. Did I tell you I got hit by a truck?
Yeah, when you were on your bike, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was.
and that's yeah. Go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I was biking to school, biking to the Bible college, and that weekend it was Friday morning. That weekend, EBC has an event called the All Campus Retreat, and for underclassmen, it is absolutely 100% required.
Okay.
And honestly, not so bad, assuming that you lived on campus, because it was like a 8 in the morning. You listened to sermons and whatever messages from people all around the valley, telling you about their church, their congregation, like what are some of the cool things that they've learned, yada yada yada. It was really neat and informative.
Are they like pitching you their churches, or are they?
Not really. It was more like previous students coming back to be like, hey, this is some of the experience that I've had in the real world, and here's how my education at BBC has helped me. So,
Gotcha.
like, genuinely, I think the idea was really cool. Um, in practice, it was, I have to go to school at 8 in the morning today, bike from school to work during the college's lunch hour, bike back to school to do another class, bike back to work because of course I did. From there, normally I would go home, but now I have to bike back to school because the campus retreat was starting that night. Was ending at like 9 p.m. or something, where I'd have to bike from school back home to sleep just to go back to school again at 8 in
At
the
8 a.m.,
morning,
yeah.
stay there the whole day until like 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, bike back home to sleep, bike back to school in the morning where I was going to have to miss volunteering on Sunday for school, knowing that I had a paper due on Monday.
Wow.
So at some point during all of this, I'm supposed to write that report for who became the guy who was the president of the school at the time. So he knows the retreat is happening. He knows that all of us in that class have to be there, and he chose to put the due date on that Monday.
Yeah.
I was like, this is absurd. And I was so mad about having to do that. So I'm biking to school that morning, and I am just very upset.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up there was a guy who ran a stop sign, and he hit me. Honest to God, like when I got hit, I got bumped, got thrown into the middle of the road, and I was like, I stood up. Well, I actually walked myself back to the curb and was fully anticipating having to go back. And it wasn't until the ambulance arrived and they told me, hey man, you should probably stop asking people how their day was. Because I was like trying to make friendly conversation. I was like, these people are helping me. I'm going to go
Just
back
got
to
hit by a
school.
truck. Oh,
Like,
hey man, how are you doing?
I was like, I gotta keep my attitude high because otherwise I'm not gonna get back to school.
Yeah, so you're still planning, like, after you get hit by the truck, you're like, your mission is
I was
still like,
like,
I still got to get to school.
Yeah, my thought was like, I'm going to sit here and rest for a little bit, and then I'm going to continue going to school. I'm definitely going to be late to first period, but I'm going to go back to school. Like that was where my head was at. And then the ambulance showed up. They picked me up and took me into the ambulance, and it was at that point that I realized, okay, I'm probably not going back to school.
Yeah.
That is the most tangible way that God has ever spoken to me because I wanted out of that retreat so bad. I was like, God, I will do anything to get out of this retreat. And I got hit by a car.
Wow.
And
Just because of, like, the exhaustion and just going back and forth, and, I mean, it just seemed like they were overloading you guys.
yeah, and that's a lot of what it was is their philosophy was that this is a boot camp for your spiritual life. And again, all very good theory. All very good theory where we're going to take these kids, we're going to, rigorously train them to be, reliant on God, to form the habits needed to have a robust and healthy spiritual life as they move forward into ministries, which will probably be just as or even more taxing. All things considered, like the workload at BBC was actually less than what I had in high school. And probably less than most people's like undergraduate programs. Like I genuinely think it wasn't that bad.
I just want to throw out real quick, you did go to a high school where you can graduate with your associate's degree, so you were probably used to a bigger workload. Just going to throw that out there.
I did do that.
But
I wasn't going to include that part, but I did do that.
You did do that, but continue.
Yeah, so all things said and done, it wasn't really that bad. Where it broke down in practice was they assumed a lot of all of their students. And for the vast majority of them, staying on campus was a pretty reasonable expectation. But for somebody like me who grew up in Boise, kind of knew the area, and if I could find something to do off campus, I was going to do it off campus because, most of the kids are coming in from Oregon, wherever, and they're like, oh, I don't know anything about Boise. I need to get food. I will go to the cafeteria or whatever.
Just on campus.
Yeah. Which, like, perfectly reasonable for anybody who was committed to staying on campus. I was not, and I didn't want to pay to stay on campus. So that it really brought into perspective again the like egotism of, hey, I'm going to train these students up in this exact way, and I'm going to make it hell for anyone who's not doing it in this exact way. And I think God is bigger than that. That's really what it comes down to, is you want to train somebody for an active life in ministry. Don't tell them to change ministries every year. Tell them to commit to one, because your job doesn't get to change every single year. You're going to have to slog it through 5, 10, 15 years of a ministry that's not very fun. And that's real life. Welcome to it. Not this boot camp, whatever. It was not a good system for anyone who was not 100% involved into that system. And genuinely, I don't think it was working. I know of 3, 4, maybe a handful of success stories from that school. Everybody else I knew, pretty much dropped out.
Yeah, and I've also kind of heard, I can't remember who it was that said this, but they said that someone they even knew went to Boise Bible College and studied like preaching, and they were a better preacher before they went than after.
Yeah, so
like even like it can kind of beat some of your gifts maybe out of you.
Yeah, so here's an actual really good example of what you're talking about. There's a class at BBC that in theory is really cool. It's called Hermeneutics of Preaching. Hermeneutics of Preaching? One of those words. Hermeneutics of Preaching is what we're going to call it. And the idea is that all of your preaching should start with the foundation that the Bible is truth. Which again, in theory and on paper sounds pretty good. But if you assume that everything in the Bible is true, you're also probably assuming that everybody in the crowd agrees that the Bible is true. Mm-hmm. How are you supposed to reach anyone who doesn't believe that?
Right.
Where do you don't. You can't. It is an impossibility that you're going to be able to do that. And that's the mindset that they approached a lot of their ideas with, is that we're going to have a conversation about relativism either on or off the podcast.
We've had it on this podcast before.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So a lot of Christians believe in the, there is no such thing as relativism. There is only the divine truth. And I actually believe that that's true, but we need to redefine the word relativism.
I take this life too serious to watch it pass me by. I'm awake, I'm aware, not delirious. This is me and it feel right. I'm a star in the waiting area. This era is my prime. I'll pack the load, I'll carry ya if I can find the time.